Good morning. Good morning. Hello. It is, why does it is the Fridayest of Tuesdays today. That is how I feel. It's the Fridayest of Tuesdays. Thank you for coming. We are going to settle in. We're going to sip some coffee and we are going to talk about motivation. Today, I want to talk about how to motivate yourself to study, and we're going to go over 8 tips. Now, I'm actually really excited because the article that we are going to review today was not written by me, but we'll get into that when we actually get to the article. So all of the timestamps will be down in the description. So please, if you want to review or peruse any of those, you are very welcome. And before we get started, hi, my name's Terrell, and this is Absolutely Studying. I chat about study tips, organizational hacks, and goal setting to keep you on track. So today we are going to chat about how to motivate yourself to study and go through the 8 tips. So if you would please like this video and subscribe to my channel, and I am just going to I'm gonna get in. I am going to share my screen. And we're going to get started doing all of it. Okay, so how to motivate yourself to study. This is, of course, my study planner. Let's zoom. Have a little bit of coffee. So are you looking for some motivation to study? Well, keep reading this article, and in the end, you'll be sure to get motivated. So what I was saying before is this is actually my very first guest post that I have accepted. So this is from a guest contributor. Let's scroll down to the bottom. They are the founder of StudHelp. So if you want to, the article is linked down in my bio. Go over there, visit them, give them a shout, and check out their website as well. Links are down in the description box if you want to if you want to go and visit them. So this is a big milestone for me, having my giving up. It's not even asking for or somebody coming and approaching me to publish for them, because I've had that happen a lot of times. But for me, it's about the control aspect. Like I am so careful about my website, and I'm so it's like my baby, it's like letting somebody else hold your baby, or dress your baby, or do something with your baby, and I'm just like, I don't know if I'm ready to. It's so I finally let go. I finally accepted a guest post. And I'm really happy that I did. I think it turned out great. So let's jump in. Okay, so are you looking for some motivation to study? Keep reading this article or watching this live stream, listening to our session here. And in the end, I'm sure you'll be motivated to get started. We often don't feel like studying, but because of homework and exams, we have to do so. Therefore, you need to motivate yourself and kick out the laziness. In today's video, I will give you the 8 best tips that will help you whenever you have zero motivation to study. These tips are so easy, you won't even break a sweat. Let's dive straight in. So first, make your study sessions fun and interesting. You enjoy playing video games or watching Netflix. You enjoy playing video games or watching Netflix because these are fun and interesting. They require no motivation, and you love to do them all the time. Hence, you need to make your study session or your study time equally as fun and interesting. But how can you do this? Well, there are a couple of ways that work well to make your study time more enjoyable. Solving math problems while listening to music, isn't that a great combination? Background background music doesn't only make your study time stimulating, but also improves your concentration. It's proven that listening to classical music or music with no lyrics certainly boosts one's concentration. So try it now while studying. Apply what you learn. Oh, sorry, side note. This something I love. I actually have a bunch of, let's open this up and go, let's just go for a little walk. I have a whole bunch of guided study sessions, both here on the YouTube channel and on the website, just under study, and then under the very first entry, guided study session. So if you do the Pomodoro method, these are already pre-timed, a lot of them. And there are some that just go through and do the whole thing. So they have some music. I sometimes release ones with music. They have some music. They have some nice calming visuals that you can either just, minimize the screen and listen to the music, or if you want it to play in the background, there's like a cafe theme. There's a Christmas theme, but I think it's Christmas theme, winter theme. There's a whole bunch of different themes. Also, there was another one where I also like listening to video game soundtracks while I work or study. And that's because video game soundtracks are composed to enhance focus and concentration. So I don't necessarily listen to like boss fight themes, but I will often listen to things that are kind of mellow and background music, because the boss round themes, those just make me too anxious. But there's like a 10-hour video on YouTube and it's called Journey to Xanarkand. It's a Final Fantasy X song. It's like in their opening credits. I would, like, when I had a really long study session, I would sit down and I would listen to that. And it was literally 10 hours long. And it's so funny because I actually have some friends who, when they were going to school completely independently, didn't go to the same school as me, didn't study with me, didn't even study the same thing. I was talking about studying and I was like, oh, you should listen to this. It'll help you concentrate for the full 10 hours. And they were like, I'm listening to it right now. I listen to it all the time. So that really great study music, apparently. I've crowdsourced. I've done a crowdsourcing. I've done a survey. I've done a study, and several people like it. Next, apply what you've learned. Just studying theory can be boring unless you apply it. Whether you do a small science experiment on what you learn in your chemistry class, or calculate the area of your study room after learning geometry, it will always be fun to do. So that's very much like, instead of just reading and writing your notes over and over and over again, actually try the practice problems. If you can think up your own, that's great, but otherwise check out your textbook, your notebook, and just pull practice problems from there. Sometimes if you are having trouble focusing on theory, this is a great alternative. Use flashcards and mind maps. Flashcards and mind maps also work great to make your study fun and interesting. Flashcards help you memorize any concept or formula easily. In contrast, mind mapping allows you to identify the relationship between different topics and explore subjects broadly. So these two study activities, while they're both fun, have very different ways of learning. So flashcards are a more active recall study session. So that's great for learning how to quickly retrieve and communicate information that you've learned while you were studying. So this is great for learning how to test yourself for exams, getting ready for exams and stuff like that. Mind maps, in contrast, are a free association study tip. So that is just going through and checking where any gaps in your knowledge is. So mind mapping, you would grab a blank piece of paper and just pick a topic, write that topic down on the piece of paper, whether it's in the middle of the piece of paper or near the top. and just making kind of a branching map, mind brainstorm diagram of all of the concepts, how they're related, and drawing the relationships and associations between each of the ideas that come forth. So when you do a flashcard, you're recalling, you flip it over and you check the answer and make sure that you got it right. And when you're mind mapping, you make this whole spread out diagram. And then you take it back to your notes, you fill it in, and you check where the information gaps are. So what part of the map did you leave out? What ideas did you leave out? And so that way you can double down and you can check and see where you should focus more of your study activities on. Now let's move on to our second tip that boosts your motivation to study. I should say both of these work because they're not structured. So the flashcards, yeah, you can have a set of time. So maybe you are sitting there and you are studying for 15 minutes, or maybe you are studying for the 25 minutes and going through your flashcards. But while you're doing that, you can get up, you can walk around, you can kind of move your body while you're doing that. You're not forced and confined into one space. You can do them sitting on a bench in the park. You can have a little bit more autonomy and freedom while you're doing flashcards. You're not chained to your desk. And mind maps, it's very much more of a spatial, kinetic, and visual learning exercise. You're not trying to force information into your mind. Instead, you're letting it flow out, and that can be very freeing during your study sessions. And so that can help a little bit with motivation because of the free, less structured aspect of these study activities. 2, set a goal to study. We often find lack of motivation to study because we don't have a goal or target for our study sessions. Do you set a timer or plan out a routine ahead of time? This can also contribute to the lack of motivation to get started. You might not believe it, but when you set goals, you are more likely to achieve them. So choose your study goals. Targets like listing important topics or how many pages can you read in an hour. Jotting things down on paper is the first and best step to getting the motivation and preparing yourself to study. The key is here to make tiny study goals. Don't choose targets like studying for 6 hours at a time. If you want to study longer, you can add more goals once you've achieved the tiny ones and studied effectively. So the key to tiny goals is picking something that is realistic and attainable. Having a small goal, so to read 5 pages rather than to read 5 chapters, is going to be much more attainable within the time restraints that you have to study. So when you are making little goals like that, and it also gives you something to work at. So now you're not sitting down and thinking, I am going to be here for the next 5 to 10 hours, and I have nothing else going on except for me in this textbook. That can be very daunting and very unmotivating because you know about 20 minutes in, you're going to be bored. And then you have another 7.5 hours that you have to study in order to finish what you're doing and move on. So that can be really, really daunting. And frankly, a lot of people just don't want to do it. So it can be unmotivating. Whereas if you sit down and you say, okay, today, my goal is to get this entire chapter read. I'm going to read one whole chapter. We're just going to use that. So right now I'm going to sit down and I'm going to break that down. So that one chapter has 6 subchapters in it. And so first, I'm just going to skim over this subchapter, and then that's going to take me 5 minutes. And after that, I'm going to read it. So that's 2 goals right there. And you can start crossing those off. So you just have these little tiny goals. It's so much easier to skim over a 1.5 pages of writing than it is to read that 1.5 pages of writing. So you're going to skim over it, and then you're going to cross it off. But now you've primed yourself. So now You can reward yourself with a little break, and then you can sit down and you can read that page and a half and highlight it and pull your notes and make your practice quizzes. And all of these itty bitty tasks are tiny goals that you set for yourself that are going to keep you moving forward, because this is just a task and then I'm going to break. So I'm not working for 8 hours anymore. Now I'm working for 25 minutes, and then I'm going to take a 5-minute break, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to work for 25 more minutes, and then I can go take another break. And so these little steps, and these breaks are only 5 minutes, nice short little breaks just to get you energized and ready to come back and take the next task. So these little goals are going to help to keep you moving forward in a focused manner so that you can see the progress. You're not just looking at this chapter that has 20 pages and you have to read it and take notes, and it feels like it's taking all day to get there. Instead, you can see all of the steps you've already taken in order to get to where you are, and all of the steps needed to go. And you know these steps only take a handful of minutes to complete, so you're breezing through them. So what this is going to change is this is going to change your focus from sitting down and studying a chapter and not being motivated to do it, to actually being focused to complete these simple tasks, these small goals, and moving forward. And that's going to not only help you be more motivated to do it, it's going to give you a clear line to finish the assignment that you've made yourself, the list of tasks that you made for yourself. And it's going to help you to do it faster so that you're actually done faster. And you might be able to take a longer break and then tackle some of the stuff that you need to take on for tomorrow as well. So study to learn, not just to memorize. A quote by Natalie Portman said, "I don't love studying. I hate studying. I like learning. Learning is beautiful." And, I agree with that. I do. I love learning new things. And I think that it's so nice and so refreshing when you do learn new things and you feel good and you can feel yourself kind of taking on that new information, and then you can use it and apply it to new things. And I think it makes me feel so much better to learn new things. I agree, studying can't be everyone's cup of tea, but learning can be. Learning is always fun and exciting. In case you don't understand the difference between them, I'll tell you. Studying means reading and memorizing, while learning means gaining knowledge and upskilling yourself. If you've ever focused in class, one second, let's have a sip of coffee. If you've ever focused in a class learning a novel concept that caught your attention, you must have been learning something worthwhile that day. Learning expands your world and introduces you to new insights. It does not have to be formal education, but it will allow you to see things from a new angle. The best part of learning is that you don't even have to memorize anything when you're focused enough to learn. You just need to revisit the material from time to time so you won't get any. You just need to revisit the material from time to time so you won't forget anything. Hence, if you don't feel like studying, opt for learning, because learning is always exciting and gaining knowledge is always rewarding. So the revisiting material aspect of it is called spaced repetition. So spaced repetition is essentially going through and reviewing a topic periodically to try and get ahead of the forgetting curve. So the forgetting curve is just how quickly information deteriorates in your memory over time. And I think you've probably heard me mention this many times. And when you learn something, when you're in class, you've learned 100% of what you learned in class. So you took that all in, and now you walk out the door. Within 24 hours, 60% of what you learned in class is gone. What spaced repetition does is it refreshes and catches some of those facts that are trying to slip away and brings them back and solidifies them. So the first time you review the information, you'll remember a little bit more. So that 40% that you retained will go up to 45%. And then you review it again, and then it goes up to 50%. And then you review it again, and it goes up to 55%. So every time you review the contents of the class, your memory goes up a little bit more. And it's not something that you can necessarily plot, but it is proven. Studies have proven it. So going through and learning something and then elaborating on it, learning a little bit more, reviewing it is going to help you to learn more and more and more. And this goes with retain more and more and more of that topic. And this goes with anything. Finding an angle about a concept that might be tricky to memorize. If you try and learn something foundational about it, or learn something and elaborate the information around it so that you are learning more about it, not just the piece of information that the professor tells you, but actually learning some fun facts about it and some kind of things around it is going to help you to remember that one piece of information better. Stay away from distraction. Oh, the puppy. The puppy is dragging himself around the floor. Stay away from distraction. Now, if you decide to learn and study, make sure you eliminate distraction first. Distraction could be anything that grabs your attention while studying. It could be your phone, social media, television, or even an annoying roommate. He's playing. I'm so sorry. If you do hear some noise, it is my dog. He's quite a large dog. And now that I'm talking about him, he knows that I'm talking about him, and he is coming over to try and play a little bit closer. So if you did not hear him before, you will definitely hear him scratching around on the ground now. I would invite him to say hi, but he's entirely too big and he already thinks he's a lap dog, as only large dogs can. And then he will knock over everything. So he is a big, giant German Shepherd klutz. Use study techniques. Using study techniques boosts your motivation to study, and you learn more effectively. Moreover, some techniques improve your subject clarity and allow you to study correctly. Here are some of the best techniques for trying while studying. The Feynman technique. This technique helps you to learn a concept quickly and effectively. It is a 4-step process. First, you pick a topic. Then you explain it to someone in an easy to understand description of that topic. Next, identify your knowledge gap that you can't explain clearly. Next, organize and simplify the concept. I did not plan this, but as a side note, this doesn't necessarily have to be done with a person, the Feynman technique. If you are alone and you do not want to call up a friend and be like, hey, buddy, Al, let me go on a 3-hour in-depth explanation about the periodic table of elements. You don't have to do that. What you can do instead, and they actually do this with children who are struggling to read, is you can explain it to somebody like my dog here. You can explain it. If you can't teach it to another person and you have a pet, teach it to your gerbil or your goldfish. It's not so much the aspect of teaching it to another person. It's great if they can respond and ask questions. But if you are in a pinch, definitely try and teach it to your dog. This is going to work in a couple of ways. Obviously, you're going to have to try and use very plain language because your dog is not going to get the big words. They're not going to get any of them, but actually, no, they will. They will. Your dog will understand. But it is also the aspect of putting into words your thoughts. It's really easy to think about a concept, to read it, and to have it in your mind, and it's rattling around in there, and you feel like you've got a good grasp of it. But if you can't communicate it, if you can't put it into words and say it or explain it or communicate it to another person, then you're going to have a really, really, really tough time answering those questions on a test. So it's not enough for you to remember and memorize and understand a concept. You also have to be able to communicate it. So just the process of you putting your understanding of a concept into words and speaking it out loud is part of what this Feynman technique is about. So if you don't have anybody that wants to listen to you go on a 2-hour deep dive of your major or the concept that you're studying, definitely pull over your dog or your cat or your rabbit or your gerbil, whatever kind of pet you have. If you have a potted bonsai tree on your desk, you can use that and explain it out loud to this other being, and that can help you a little bit with the Feynman technique. Spaced practice. This technique helps you to preserve the information you learn for a longer time. According to this technique, you review and revisit the material in spaced intervals over time. So day 1, you would learn the material in class. Day 2, you would revisit and review. Day 3, again, you revisit and review. After 1 week, revisit and review again. And after 2 weeks, revisit and review. This is also so much better if you are doing something with the material rather than just rereading it. So one example would be day 1, you learn the material in class. Day 2, you go over your notes and you try and fill in some of the things. Maybe you add more definitions for new terms that you use. Maybe you add some diagrams to the notes. Maybe it's a simple case of you recopy the notes out into another version. Day 3, maybe you are compiling your textbook notes with your lecture notes and you're going through and checking the difference in phrasing, the difference in the information, and you're kind of auditing the 2 different sets of notes and deciding which version of what you're going to keep, how you're going to incorporate the 2 sets of notes into one. After 1 week, maybe you're revisiting and reviewing again. So this time, as you go through those notes, you're pulling out questions and making practice quizzes. And then maybe in 2 weeks, you are now creating flashcards. That is just a suggestion. It doesn't have to be done in that order, but doing more than just reviewing by reading your notes and actually doing something that's more active, like transforming your notes or adding to your notes, where you get to actually do something rather than just reading it, where you get to write something out, or you get to elaborate on something, or you get to make diagrams. Those are going to be more effective than just reading them over alone. So that is the spaced repetition that we discussed earlier. And then also adding more study activities to and more elements to your notes to elaborate on them, to work with them, to actually get in there and use the information to actually elevate your retention just that much more. The SQ3R technique. This is also lovingly called the square technique. This is a reading comprehension strat. This is a reading coffee. I am feeling a little bit harassed. I really feel like they want my plasma. This reading comprehension study technique gives you the right direction to read a chapter and get the most out of it. Square is a 5-step process that combines survey, question, read, recite, and review. To begin with, take a survey of the chapter. Next, create questions about each topic. What is the topic about, and how does it relate to the real world? Once you have questions, read each section and try and find the answer. If you can't find answers, then try to recall them. The final step is to review the chapter to ensure that you understand it. Quiz yourself quiz yourself on the questions you created and reread any unclear parts. Now, so this square technique is a reading strategy. And I talk a lot about reading strategies on the website. I talk about it in my digital course. Reading strategies are so important because they really amplify and really kind of deep dive into the information and help that information become more stable in your memory. So I believe it's a 7-step reading process that I used in university. And this is a great place to start, the square, but definitely taking the square technique and then tailoring it to your study style can really, really help to make your study strategy even that more effective. So even though it might take you longer to read a chapter or a piece of information, because there are so many steps and you're doing so many different things to them, each of these steps, so each step in this 5-step process is an additional opportunity for you to retain a little bit more information. So let's say that, remember, when you take in information, within 24 hours, you lose 40% of it. So each of these steps is going to help you keep just that much more. And even if each step only helps you keep 5% more or 2% more, that's still an additional 10% more information that you would have been able to keep. So now, instead of only remembering 40% of the information, you remember 50% of the information. So then when you come back on day 2, you're going to try and remember 60% of the information. So it's kind of advancing your starting point for where you are when you are starting out reading your reading strategy. And it's also going to help you to actually understand the information better, because instead of just taking it in, you're stopping and thinking critically of it. And that's one of the factors from this very intentional 5-step reading strategy. So if you are currently just reading your textbook and you're not going through something like the square strategy, if you don't have a structured intentional reading strategy, try the square strategy, or you can, and see how that works for the first couple of times you study. And then if you want to go on to learn how to make your own study strategy and get some suggestions on that, you can definitely check out my digital course, and that will walk you right through it. Now, my 6th tip, now it leads to my 6th tip that can motivate you to study. So find your best learning style. Some days you might not feel like studying your textbook. When this happens, try to visualize what you need to know. Watching video lectures about the topic is an excellent place to start. These are the 4 learning styles in case you're unfamiliar with them. There are visual, auditory, reading and writing, and kinesthetic. A visual learner learns something easily by watching visuals like images, video graphics, and more. Like images, videos, graphics, and more. In contrast, a kinesthetic learner learns by actually doing practical work. Now, you need to figure out which learning style motivates you to study and enables you to learn effectively. It's possible to have more than one learning style. In this case, find activities that play to these strengths and that you enjoy. So for me, I am a very, very visual learning style, and I'm also very kinesthetic. So I love doing things with my hands and being able to visually see and explore things. So for me, when I was in school doing labs where I can actually get in there and do something with the information that I learned was incredibly helpful. For me, I am geared very, very far away from the auditory reading style. So for me, if I just hear something, I cannot, it does not exist to me. I can't retain it. It doesn't stick. It's just gone. Like it literally goes one ear and out the other. So things like that don't work for me. And that could be things like sitting in lecture without doing anything, or doing flashcards with a friend where they ask me questions. If I can't see the question, I cannot answer it. And I end up giving them all the wrong marks, even though I know the information. Reading and writing for me falls somewhere in the middle. So as long as I am able to read and employ my entire reading strategy where I skim over it and I read it and then I visualize it and I highlight it and I write it out and I do all of those steps, I can get reading and writing. But it's generally not one of my strongest suits, but it still needs to be done. And so I still do it. But where I compensate in that area is that I add a lot of visual aspects to my reading and writing. So finding out where you fall in comfort level and in efficacy for each of the learning styles is really very, very helpful. And that way you can tailor your study sessions more to your strengths and keep them more interesting. Reward yourself every time. To stay motivated while studying, you need to appreciate your efforts. To motivate yourself to stay motivated while studying, you need to appreciate your efforts and reward yourself. Whenever you solve a difficult math question or finish homework for Whenever you solve a difficult math question or finish homework for one subject, it's always good to reward yourself. Think about when you score an A on your test paper and how your parents reward you with your favorite video game or news cycle. These rewards are given to you so you'll be motivated enough to do them next time. These rewards are given to you so you'll be motivated enough to do more next time. Likewise, you should also reward yourself from time to time. Now, here's a reward. A reward could be anything. It could be enjoying an ice cream, hanging out for half an hour, watching your favorite Netflix show, or anything that gives you a kick to continue. If you're looking for motivation to study, first find the reward that will push you. For example, you may use your phone for 30 minutes as a reward for studying for 1 hour uninterrupted. Isn't that a great way to motivate yourself to work? But you must keep that promise, however. So depending on what you're studying and what your reward can be, make sure that you have different ways that you can reward yourself. So it could be your coffee for reading a paragraph. It could be having a snack. It could be baking cookies and having cookies throughout your study session. Whatever motivates you to study, whatever motivates you to give you a little bit of joy, to get that dopamine flowing just a little bit. Maybe it's a scoop of ice cream. Give yourself that reward for a job well done. And that's going to create a positive reinforcement cycle so that you are more apt, you're more eager, you're more motivated to complete a task, because even if you don't plan it or even if you don't focus on it consciously, your subconscious will know, hey, doing this task gets me dopamine, gets me more reward, and makes me happy, so that it's not going to be so hard to motivate you going forward. Instead, you'll be able to sit down and your subconscious will already be like, hey, we do good things, we get good things. We do this, we get a reward. And so now the positive reinforcement cycle will take care of some of that, the lack of motivation or some of that procrastination for you, because you've already conditioned yourself with the rewards to study and work hard and get those things done. Always remember your ambition. Do you have any ambitions or dreams? You must have specific goals in life to keep you working towards your future. These can start with targets like passing your exam with good marks or getting into your dream college. Buying a luxurious car and working towards your dream career will also help you succeed. Your goals can only be achieved with hard work and education. These are the things you are actually working towards when you study. Getting lazy won't help you achieve success. So, what are you waiting for? If you're not feeling like studying now, close your eyes and visualize your dreams for a few minutes. You'll surely be motivated to study if you're serious about your goals and plans. Now it's your turn. So in this article, in this podcast, I have given you 8 of the best tips to motivate yourself. I hope you have enjoyed this article too. And now I'd like to hear from you. Which tips from this article will motivate you the most? Are you going to go study now? Let me know in the comments. Or if you have any queries, mention that also. I'd love to reply to you. So you can always, again, if you want to leave a comment directly for StudHelp, you can head over down into the description box and you can click the link and they are going to be checking that out. Otherwise, you can also leave comments down below. I do love hearing from you. Here, let me stop share as we are finishing up here. We are coming to a close. So yeah, there we go. All of the things. So thank you again. We do already have the Friday live stream scheduled. We're going to be going through and doing some goal setting. Also, what is on Friday? What is on Friday? I think we're talking about procrastination on Friday. Let me not procrastinate. Let me double check. Checking. Yes. Okay, 10 reasons that you are procrastinating and how to finally stop the cycle. So that's what we're going to be talking about on Friday, right here on the channel. So make sure that you do subscribe so you can get the notification for when we go live. And like this video, it does really help. Thank you so much for StudHelp for helping me out and writing that article. I'm not regretting it. I'm really happy that I finally relinquished some control, some of that grip, that control grip that I hold over the website, and allowed a guest poster. If you do have any questions, make sure to hit me up in the comments section, or you can catch me on my socials. They are all linked below in the description box. And I will see you on Friday. And until then, I hope you have an amazing adventure.